Hey everyone, it's Gracie, and today I will be giving my Essay 2 presentation on the dialectical approach to intercultural communication. And today we will understand how communication and culture shape each other through a series of contradictions and negotiations. So, beyond a normal static culture, there is a traditional view where culture is fixed and measurable, boxed up, and difference is viewed as more of an obstacle than an achievement or than a positive thing. Whereas the dialectical approach sees culture as a dynamic interplay of different forces that can also coexist together to mutually inform communication transmission. So this idea was originally proposed by Martin and Nakayama, the article that we read earlier this semester in class, and I just sort of built this essay off of those ideas from that paper. But this approach reframes contradictions as a natural, positive, and generative thing rather than something that is problematic. So there are 6 key dialects: cultural individual, personal contextual, differences and similarities, static dynamic, past, present, future, and privilege to disadvantage. So all of these dialects represent opposite ends of spectrums that have something to do with every piece and interaction of intercultural communication. The both and nature of intercultural communication represents similarities, differences, stability, and also transformation that can all coexist within intercultural communication. And what this means is that meaning emerges through an ongoing, constant management of tensions within communication. So Wineland emphasizes that these tensions are not obstacles, they are not negative pieces in communication, but they are opportunities to deepen understanding and to also look back with critical reflection. So from the global dialectics perspective, it goes beyond simple interpersonal adaptation. Ganesh argues that situating communicative tensions within systems of a political economy, colonial legacies, and globalization are ways to push forward with a global dialectic perspective. This global and inclusive framing moves communicators towards a more critical awareness and structural power rather than just merely adapting to difference and keeping intercultural communication within strict boxes. So to bring dialectics in with argumentation, there are different ways to move through that. It starts with cultural reasoning patterns and seeing how different cultural structures use logic and persuasion within their communication patterns. Next is communicative norms, looking at social expectations which shape discourse in any culture that you're in. And lastly, there is moral logic and looking at the ethical frameworks that come through within discussion throughout different cultures. So Liu demonstrates that intercultural discussions involve both rational negotiation and emotional attention together at the same time. And this is a balance that is very relevant to multicultural workspaces and educational contexts as well. We want to have the structure of rational negotiation. We need that strict structure, but we also need attention to emotions and to what is lying underneath the surface through tones that people use and cultural norms, regulations, all those sorts of things within conversation. So some core principle for practice with the dialectical approach is first to embrace reflexivity. We want to be able to examine cultural assumptions and biases and to also be flexible within that as well. We also want to cultivate adaptability, again, being adaptable, being flexible, looking on both sides of the spectrum to be able to navigate through diverse contexts within communication. We also want to accept ambiguity and to be able to hold multiple truths simultaneously rather than boxing certain ideals in and seeing them as black and white. And lastly, we also need to recognize power dynamics within communication in different cultures and acknowledge that there are structural inequalities that deeply shape interaction within different cultures. So to construct our intercultural selves, our key insight today is going to be that identity development occurs through a synthesis of conflicting cultural expectations, and it is not by simply resolving contradictions, but by sustaining them productively. So we want to embrace contradictions. We want to embrace the gray area of thinking and not be stuck in the boxed in black and white ideals that sometimes come forward within intercultural communication. So these authors show us that intercultural competence requires us to learn how to uphold opposing values, beliefs, and identities with intention. So this looks like embracing beliefs and values that are different from your own. And instead of seeing them as wrong because they are different, we want to embrace them because they are different and to see the power that we can find within that. So some different interdisciplinary actions that we can take within the dialectic approach is to organize our context. We want to navigate economic and cultural hierarchies within global business environments because they do exist. We also want to look at discourse studies to analyze augmentation patterns across cultural boundaries to see how different cultures communicate and argue and participate in discourse and what those patterns look like. With psychological development, we also want to understand self-construction, where empathy is valued, especially within dialectical engagement. And then we also, again, we want to foster openness, humility, and critical thinking skills within students so that intercultural competence can become a more widespread thing. So lastly, to close, contradiction is a foundation of the dialectic approach to communication. The dialectic positions, they contradict each other, not as communicative failure. It is not a negative thing, but it is the very foundation in which intercultural understanding and empathy are both built. Understanding and empathy are built on contradictions. By bridging critical, psychological, and pragmatic frameworks, the interdisciplinary approach of the dialectic position provides us with both theoretical insight and just really practical strategies for navigating our globally interconnected world. And that is all. Thank you.